make space for yourself, right? So it's make sure you have me time. And at the end of the day, I mean, I guess it's known if you overwork yourself, you're going to be less creative. So, and then a lot of creative ideas come just from taking a break from a problem, right? And going for a walk or working out or whatever, just freeing your mind. I mean, it can be done through working out. It can be done through meditation. It can be done through taking time off, travel, vacation, in all kinds of ways.
Okay, I've got something exciting to share with you. Over the past few months, my team and I have been working hard behind the scenes to create something special for you, my listeners. If you're an executive, entrepreneur, or other high performer looking to lose 20 to 30 pounds of fat, transform your body, and to do it all without giving up your favorite foods or your social life in the process, then you're gonna wanna hear this. I've never done anything like this before, but I'm confident it's going to help you win big with your health in 2022. So if you're excited to see what I have planned to help you, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/Facebook to join my exclusive Facebook group. Again, that's legendarylifepodcast.com/Facebook. See you inside. What is up, my friend, and welcome back to the Legendary Life Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Ryce, coach to entrepreneurs and other busy professionals. And today I have a special guest for you. His name's Dan Reitman. And unlike many of the guests that I have on the show, Dan is an entrepreneur. He's a successful one. I mean, the guy, his business, it's just killing it. He's the CEO of Stroll, a Philadelphia-based education e-commerce platform and one of the fastest growing companies in America. But here's the thing. I met Dan in 2020 at Medellin at an entrepreneur event where he was speaking. And I reconnected with him just randomly walking to an event that I was attending in Mexico City. Again, another entrepreneur event for the same group called Dynamite Circle. And as soon as I saw him, I said, Dan, you made an incredible transformation. After I saw that body transformation that he did on his own with other people, he's going to share with you how he did it. But I knew I had to get him on the show to share with you how a busy entrepreneur, a busy executive like himself was able to fit this into his life and how he did it. And what advice he has for you if you're struggling with time, which happens to be the number one excuse, especially for busy professionals, especially for entrepreneurs. So if you're the person who finds that work just takes all your time away and you feel like you just haven't been able to balance work with your health, you're going to get a lot out of today's interview. So without further ado, let's hop into the interview with Dan Reitman. Dan Reitman, thanks so much for being on the show today. Really looking forward to this conversation and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Dan, I don't know how much media you've done or do or what you're into in terms of podcasting and being a public figure. But I met you twice, once in Medellin, and then more recently we reconnected in DC, Mexico, an event for entrepreneurs. And we got to walking over to the hotel together and got into a conversation that I really enjoyed a lot. I want to jump into so many things, but before we get there, can you talk a little bit about your background, who you are, what you do, some of the amazing accolades that you have, and then we'll dive a bit deeper.
Sure, happy to. Well, I guess I got my beginning my senior year in college over 20 years ago, where basically I launched my first company out of college, which over 15 years became close to $100 million education company. And so did that business. So I went from entrepreneur to professional manager over time. I had close to a couple hundred employees, had a full management team, just went through the full transformation and evolution, I guess, business wise. And then for whatever reason, I wanted to go back and do something startup oriented. I promised myself in my after my first company that I'd just go buy something. And so, but I just had the itch to start something again, and started a software company, did that for a couple of years. And then did for a small amount of time, did like a management consulting type of business. And then ultimately 3 years ago, started a early education company that really is my main focus today. So 90% of my time is really trying to, and really my kind of where I see my future is trying to transform education. I mean, just I think we need a new breed of leaders and just a whole new approach to education. So we're kind of taking an incremental approach to that with our first business, Mindfinity, and then have a lot of other stuff that we're doing there. So then 10% of my time, I mean, is spent mentoring high growth entrepreneurs. I mean, I'm helping companies that just want to get to the next level. One has exited, several in the process of exiting. So it's just that whole next level piece that I just really enjoy. I mean, while I'm in startup mode, I really enjoy the scaling of existing businesses as well.
And just we have a lot of entrepreneurs who listen. What is the level that you need to be at to work with someone like you? Is it like you need to be making 7 figures, or is it 8 figures, or?
Generally, it's $5 to $40 million is where I found the kind of sweet spot. I do get compensated, so it's just a good phase where the CEO has some freedom to actually implement, so they're not just totally in firefighting mode all the time. So, I mean, I help solve some of those problems, but it's just, really want somebody to be in a position where they can work on the business more and more instead of in the business.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's just, and then it's just the strategies that we can implement, the people that we need to put in place. But I mean, I'll help with some of the operational pieces. I mean, just giving guidance on that. But then it's, I really like to spend my time on like, how do we get from A to B, C, or Z? I mean, just more the strategic pieces, and how do you just accelerate what's already there? And if there are any capital constraints, how do we solve that? I mean, there's all kinds of issues that you start to get into, but it's I don't know. I find that stuff's more fun than the remedial, like just basics, like just teaching the basics. I mean, so it's just find it more fun.
I understand. So yeah, if you're listening, then if you got that business in the 5 to 40 range in terms of your income for your business, Dan might be someone you want to check in with. Dan, you talked about how leadership is really important to you just now, and you actually want to create a new breed of leader. In our conversation in Mexico City, we talked about your physical transformation, because from 2020 in Medellin, I believe it was in March, February, to recently, October in Mexico City, October of 2021, you had this transformation. And when we talked, you said something that a mentor told you about the type of entrepreneur you should avoid becoming. Can you talk a little bit about your view, that story you told me, your views on how does it relate to entrepreneurship and success in general?
Yeah, so I actually was a close friend of mine who, this is maybe 2001. I remember I had graduated, and one of my best friends was helping me in the business, and we're working side by side in an office. And I remember him turning to me one day, and he's like, "Hey man, what's going on over there?" He's like, don't let yourself be, become a pudgy entrepreneur. I mean, and so I guess this might have been even 2000, but no, I think it was 2001. But we basically just ended up doing like the Body for Life challenge back then, and got into shape. And then yeah. So I mean, he inspired a lot of people. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, that was something that I always remember. It's just make sure you don't ever let yourself go too far. And so I've always taken that to heart. I mean, just trying to at least maintain some activity level, some balance, or having some thermometer basically level that if you go above that, you just want to do something about it. So Because, different points in time, different things might happen, or, before you know it, you're enjoying yourself too much. I mean, even if you are working out, you still can gain weight or whatever. So it's just one of those things, just always staying on top of it.
But why? Why does that? I mean, I know, this is my business. I know the statistics. I know the heart disease is number one, but so does everybody else.
Yeah, I guess, I've always looked at it as like, I just believe in life you can have it all. So you can have great relationships, you can have lots of wealth, you can have great health, you can have everything. So I just look at it as one of many dimensions of life that just should be there. And then there's separately, I don't know, I personally want to live to 120 years or older. I mean, if possible, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody alive today who will live to 150. It's just based on medical advances and so forth. So that just requires not worrying about that, but just you identify as someone who's going to live that long. Well, you just got to be congruent with it. So that's kind of the way I think about it.
Interesting. So a lot of your behavior is driven by this identification of, hey, I'm going to be the guy who lives to 120. And for those people who aren't aware, like that's what scientists think are like the maximum lifespan of a human being without the medical interventions and all that. So what were you going to say, Dan?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's but I think more so it's just wanting to, number one, feel good, have strong energy levels. I mean, I'm constantly optimizing. I mean, this year, not this year, last September, I cut out caffeine as an example. And it took me about 3 weeks to fully normalize. But after that, I mean, my energy levels are like completely like level all day, instead of like, okay, first cup of coffee in the morning, and then, all right, after lunch, and then a little wired, let me have a beer, and, uppers and downers, it's like, so it's also just trying to just have peak energy at all times. I mean, just to do the things I want to get done, to get the things done that I want to do. So that's another aspect. I mean, there are many different aspects of it. Then it's also like, it's a commitment to my wife. I mean, we keep each other. I mean, I don't have to keep her accountable. She's got like a perfect, amazing body and eats everything. But that said, it's just like, I think among us even, it's like, we'd call each other out if we're headed in the wrong direction or something like that. I mean, just to make sure that, you're at your best internally and not necessarily, I mean, internal is more important than external, but, external is nice too. So that's kind of the mindset.
Yeah, I like that. So that's beautiful, man. Your wife is someone who it seems like where you really shine is in the business world. And I don't know, I haven't met her, but from what you've shared today, it seems like she's got the health thing down. She maintains her physique. And so you have someone in your corner kind of setting a higher standard in that area. And that's a beautiful thing to have, and both supporting one another. Like you said, you both call each other out. I think that's so important. One of the things, Dan, that I hear from a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with is actually I've got people who have a situation where they're with, in this case, a guy who has a woman in his life who is fit, but he exercises, but he struggles with the eating, struggles with the Wagyu steaks with the boys and the 3 glasses of wine that turns into sometimes 5, or, when it was supposed to only be 1. And I'm very curious, what does that mean? And I don't mean in a judgmental way, but what does it mean what are we supposed to think about when our leaders, our business leaders, or our friends who are entrepreneurs, show up, they have this success in their business, they're making $1 million a year, or 5 or 40 or 100, whatever it is. And I even have a client who has a client who's a billionaire who is flying him all around. And I asked him, what is this guy in shape? And he was very polite about it, but it was obvious the billionaire guy was not, right? and someone with so many resources. I mean, what does it say about someone, do you think?
Oh, that's a tough one. Because there have been periods I've gone through where it's just, you're just rolling with the punches and everything. And, I guess part of it is willingness. So you've got a lot of entrepreneurs. Look, we're notorious for being ADD. And it depends on the entrepreneur, ADD, ADHD, whatever. But not everybody likes structure, even though structure, especially if you have ADD, can give you freedom in a sense. And so I kind of look at it as, I try to use wealth to my money to my advantage. I've got a personal trainer who's come for basically 6 years now, every weekday to my home, like at usually around 7 a.m. So we'll train and then that's it. And so for me, it's also, it's just making it easy. We've got a yoga instructor who comes to the house like twice a week. Then we go to tennis sessions. I'm trying to get back into it. So I've got like tennis lesson, at least one tennis lesson I go to a week. So it's just paying to make your life easier, to have accountability. I could just as easily train on my own, and I had that discipline for a long time too. So I think it's just making it a priority. It's interesting, Richard Branson, he said if he could give any recommendation to an entrepreneur, it would just be number one thing would be to work out. I thought that was interesting. He doesn't give any business advice. He's never given business advice. It doesn't matter how many times you've seen him, but there's at least a piece of life advice. So you just need to, yeah.
I actually know his family. I trained Richard once. I mostly worked with his wife when she was spending time in Miami. Trained Sam a couple times. Sam's been on the show a couple times. It's been a while. I got to reach back out to him. But it's very interesting. He's a very interesting guy because he lives on an island. And when you think about that, you're like, oh man, what a douchebag. He's got a mansion on an island. Or what the average person might think, right? What a douchebag. Lives on an island. He's probably got like helicopters and mega yachts and just this island full of luxury, but it's actually not like that at all. It's his like sanctuary away from all that stuff to have the space to be free and create. And he goes kite surfing all the time. And I read that interview. It was very interesting to read it. Like you said, not a lot of business advice, but he's like working out. What do you think about that as business advice?
Well, I think it's the advice is make space for yourself, right? So it's make sure you have me time. And at the end of the day, I guess it's known if you overwork yourself, you're going to be less creative. So, and then a lot of creative ideas come just from taking a break from a problem, right? And going for a walk or working out or whatever, just freeing your mind. It can be done through working out. It can be done through meditation. It can be done through taking time off, travel, vacation, all kinds of ways. But at the end of the day, I think it's just not forgetting about yourself. I think Jordan Peterson, wrote in one of his books about how when they look at the compliance level of medication, if you're prescribed something by a doctor, a third of people, even people that just had an organ transplant and need a medication to survive, a third of people won't even fill the prescription. Another third won't be compliant. They'll just take it haphazardly, take the medication haphazardly. And then the final third will be compliant and follow through. So just a third of people will actually follow the instructions on medication or follow the instructions from a doctor to take a medication a certain way. But if the medication were for their pet, the compliance would be really high. So it's just the tendency of people to be willing to give towards others, but maybe not caring for themselves in a certain way as much. And so it's just, I don't know if it's just deep-seated lack of self-worth or what it is, or maybe just more inclination to help others than themselves. But I think ultimately it's just, loving yourself enough to care about yourself in some ways. So and being willing to find the time. I mean, the time is always there. It's just whether you choose to use it that way. I mean, same thing even in a workout, right? I mean, you could be slacking off in a workout, or your workouts could be super short, but the moment you're getting into it, it's like, oh shit, this is going to be an intense workout. I mean, and that's pretty much what I mean. Every day, I can't say it gets any easier for me. It's intense. It's just an intense workout. It's short. I'm done, but that's it. So move on with my day.
Interesting. And you have a whole crew of people. You got a personal trainer, you've got tennis lessons, you've got yoga. A lot of entrepreneurs that I've talked to, not ones that usually become clients, but they would say, I don't have the time for that. I don't even have the time to exercise at all. I mean, obviously the people who end up working with me, I don't take clients on who have that type of mindset, because what am I going to do? Just like make the time? No, I don't have time. Okay, session's over. The coaching call's over, right? But for me, when I look at those things, it's like I don't think people understand habits that much, what they are. And it's a pattern of neural connections. It's something that you're doing over and over, and it becomes second nature. It moves from that point of conscious effort to unconscious routine. And so many of us, if most of us at least brush our teeth, right? We take showers, we get dressed, we do these things, they're routine. We learned how to do them when we were young because our parents made us, and certainly society puts pressure on us to not have bad breath and to, be presentable in school and at work. But with taking care of ourselves, we weren't taught that, and we didn't need to be previously. This obesity thing, it's new. It's a new problem. Obesity has always existed, but the level that it exists in modern society, other places, right, that are maybe if you look at Cambodia, but if you look at the United States, if you look at Malaysia, I believe it's the wealthiest country out there in Southeast Asia, they have the obesity comes with it. The obesity comes with the seated workplace, with the stress, with the emphasis on economy, growing the economy, business. And we're in a weird point, which is very good for my business, but very bad for people, where it's like, listen, it just it's not mainstream yet. Like you're probably teaching your kids to take care of your body, and they're going to go to school, get a degree, get a job, start a business, do a startup, whatever the amazing things that your children are going to go and do, and you're going to pass it on to them. But so many of us, especially, I'm 44. My dad kind of did get me into exercise a little bit, but for the guys who are in their 50s, it probably didn't happen. And still here, even for the guys who are in their 40s, or women that are in their 40s too, they didn't get that yet. And so we're trying to go against it feels like a natural inclination, but it's really not. It's just been learned from a young age, and trying to change that. And unfortunately, like you said, even when people get an organ transplant, or, I'm aware of that data that you mentioned with taking medication, even when an organ transplant, you would think they would be very motivated. And heart attacks too, people who just had heart attacks, they're not taking their medication. And it's hard to go from being a certain way to being a new way. And you have any insight into that, how to change?
Well, some people have been motivated by the pandemic. I mean, I was impressed one day. I mean, I saw someone who worked for architect, and he had lost 20, 30 pounds. He was just afraid, last April or May. Kind of maybe that's a good impetus in some sense. I mean, just getting people a little bit more focused on their health and wellness and so forth. Yeah, my dad, he was a smoker, never liked to exercise, just thought it was ridiculous. I mean, so definitely he was not an influence for me in that sense. I do think things are changing though. I mean, but the challenge is, am I in I guess if you look at the broader I guess I should take that back. If we look at the broad statistics, of course, it's out of control. Then at the same time, I guess, I feel like I've been somewhat in a bubble, just in the sense like in the online e-com information products market. I mean, just online, just the e-com market. I mean, I've got to know a lot of the fitness influencers, thought leaders, and so forth. And, I guess I've just been more exposed to different kinds of information. I mean, over the last, let's say, 15 years, like I've been generally paleo, or I guess what I would call now meat first, for I don't even know, 13 years. I mean, and have low cholesterol levels. I mean, great levels, great balance, and everything else. And I mean, heck, these days I eat more meat than ever. I mean, just purposely, like, least minimum a pound a day. So, and I mean, before I got that information, I was afraid of eating red meat. Let's put it that way. So, used to avoid it, and it had to be, skinless chicken. And now it's like, if I get a skinless chicken, I'm like, what is this? It's like, it's like an insult. One thing that comes to mind though is, with the time issue around working out. I mean, there's definitely a knowledge gap, but the knowledge gap is systemic. I'll talk about two things. I mean, the knowledge gap is systemic. I mean, look at like the standard American diet, the SAD diet, the food pyramid. I mean, it's obsolete information. I mean, it's like you wonder sometimes where they get this information, or what special interests are influencing these recommendations. Because clearly it's not working when you look at like the obesity levels within society. I mean, because 80% of being lean is just what you put in your mouth. I mean, I don't care what amount you're working out. You're unless you're running marathons. I mean, you're not going to outrun the calories in a Big Mac, or just eating garbage. I mean, it's just like, even a six pack. I mean, it's a myth, and the six pack is just residing under those layers of fat that once you get rid of them, you'll see your abs. So there's just a lot of misinformation there. So I think these days that's probably the biggest challenge. It's just like think of it as the analog to mainstream media, and getting true perspectives, or what might really be happening versus what you're being fed. It's the same thing, I think, with health information. It's just there are a lot of bad sources, and then also understanding the nuances of, like, you can have two equal truths. Like, two things could be basically two things could be totally different, and both are true, right? So you've got people who are doing ketogenic diet, for instance, and I mean that's one extreme. At the same time, you could just do a Mediterranean diet. I mean, that's a more balanced diet. I mean, they're both fine. It's just that when you're in one system, you got to stick to the rules of the one system, or else you'll kill yourself. I mean, super high fat and carbs, combined together, you've got a recipe for disaster. So it's like, so I feel one thing is it's just having good information sources. The other thing is, in terms of being able to work out and having time to do it, I've had a cook for basically had somebody cooking for me probably for the last 11 years. And I'm not talking about my wife. I mean, so basically like we early on, hired someone to bring us food. Well, actually, I guess it goes back even more than that. I mean, before I met my wife. So that's got to be 2006. It was the first time my business partner and I said, you know what, let's get healthy meals delivered to the office. And did that for quite a long time. And then still today, I have somebody that's basically, now we have somebody that, just is basically a chef, just helps at the home. So so basically I don't have extra time I have to put in to find. I'm also working from home these days. So that helps. And I've built my life in such a way that it makes this stuff pretty easy. But even if you didn't do that, there are simple workout solutions at home that are incredibly effective. That's what I do. So I think it's just a choice, right? So everything comes down to a decision, and you have to decide who you want to be and then act accordingly. You have to decide what you want, what end outcome you want. I don't want to end up like my dad. Basically I was walking with him and he retired in the Czech Republic in Prague. And I remember walking with him one day, and we were walking down a hill or whatever, and he just said, "Hey, can you stop for a moment? Just rest for a moment." I was like, "Why? What's going on?" He's like, I just have a little pressure here." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. So how long's that been going on?" And he's like, "Oh, like 2 months." And so, I basically raised hell to my stepmom. I was like, if you don't take him to the doctor and he dies, I'm going to blame you. Like, like just whatever I had to say to get her to take him. He went and immediately went in for like stents, because they basically said, you had a minor heart attack, so that's not a future I want. So it just comes down to, I don't know. I just don't want to be one of these people that's just going to take the easy route, popping pills. But ironically, I pop a hell of a lot of pills today. I mean, it's just supplements, just, proactively, or, doctor checked blood and said, "Hey, maybe we could tweak this little thing, but you are, 13 years under your age biologically. Like, you're looking great, but let's try this, or here, this could help with recovery, or whatever it is." So I'm open to that, fish oil caps, vitamin D, that kind of stuff. So so in that sense, it's more being proactive about something than needing to worry about it later.
Well said. And my dad was a big motivator for me. I remember when I was maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6, and he would lift weights and do bicep curls. We had these dumbbells. And then I would hang off of his bicep after, and I thought he was so strong. Then I grew up and realized they were only 20 pounders. You know what I mean? But still, he was doing well. He's an attorney, labor attorney, very successful, had a lot of big clients, but then really started losing it. So that was kind of a thing for me. But while you and I are motivated by the relationship with our father, and it's interesting, other people I know have a similar situation where their parent passed away or is still alive and just in poor health. It hasn't quite clicked. So it's kind of interesting. We got to really find that point. I think we almost have to look for it. Really have to look like, where can I get leverage over myself to take action? Because sometimes it's so difficult. I want to change the subject a little bit. What do you you talk about living to 120 or longer. I've had clients who went to the health nucleus and who are into all these different types of, paying attention to the different longevity, I guess, technologies that are developing. What's exciting you?
That's a good question. I've got a buddy of mine who I think has a group related to that. And it's like, has these Nobel Prize winners that talk about different things. The only advice he's ever said is like the metformin. Was it metformin? Metformin.
Metformin.
That's the only thing I've ever mentioned. The
diabetes drug.
Yeah. I don't take it, but I'm kind of looking to him. At some point to kind of see how that goes. But then I don't know. There was this, I forget what company it was, but it was almost like stranger than fiction kind of, or out of a movie kind of notice where this one CEO of some sort of gene therapy company basically figured out some way to lengthen her telomeres or something, and just injected herself with the solution they came up with. And this was in the news, and obviously she's not doing this to anybody else. But, I'm just curious, like that's a case where, you want to see, hey, 10 years from now, like, did that have the intended effect? Right. So I don't know. I can't say that other than being aware of like proactive stem cell solutions, for instance, things like that I've considered but haven't done yet. I can't say that I've really gone down the full rabbit hole. I've got a bunch of friends that are really into biohacking and other things, and I'm listening, but I haven't really heard anything definitive yet that has piqued my attention, other than stem cells, I'd probably say.
Yeah, I'm looking into that as well. It's like, and also cartilage replacements instead of knee or joint replacements. Some of these people there, if you're suffering from arthritis, they can, because a big part of it you're already doing, right? You're nobody wants to hear like, hey, maybe even if there are drugs, they're not going to build your muscle for you. And we know that muscle is linked with longevity, and certainly it's linked very strongly with the ability to get up out of a chair and do whatever you want to do, whether when you're older. And certainly if you're going to be around, what's the point if you just have to lay in bed and binge watch Apple Plus series or whatever. So very cool. Interesting. I would love to talk more about that maybe off the interview, and if you had anybody who you think would be good for the podcast, that might be kind of interesting.
I've got one friend I think you'd enjoy speaking to. I mean, he's got a supplements company that's doing a lot of interesting things with enzymes and other stuff. I mean, really growing rapidly, and he does some wild stuff. So it's always interesting talking to him as well. So, I think in all this, it's just staying motivated. I mean, and it's like constantly. I just go back to just having a trainer there just makes me want to show up. I can motivate myself. Like today, he's at a competition doing something, and no big deal. I just worked out, or I've taken 9 trips this year and continue to work out while I was away. So it's just staying disciplined. And then I guess the other thing too is I think on the education front, I feel like there's always more to learn. I mean, it was only this year that I finally was like, you know what? I haven't been getting like all the results I really want. Let me try changing my diet completely, and just eating a ton more protein. And so like that made a big difference. That made a huge difference.
Protein matters.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I was eating enough, but not obviously not. So I gained like 27, 28 pounds this year. So I'm basically at the point where I decided to do it a little bit. I mean, so many approaches to putting on mass. So, I'm kind of at the point where I might want to cut down just a bit. Just want to get my, just feeling like I want to get my body fat down again. So in that sense, even with that, I mean, over the years, I've done tons of fasting, water fasting. There's always like a new tool I've learned, which is kind of cool. I mean, eventually you just have this toolbox, and it's like when I think about losing weight, it's just super easy. I mean, it's just like, and even now without doing the fact that I don't drink coffee anymore, I think makes losing weight even that much easier. I mean, just because there's no just fasting a day, 2 days, 5 days, whatever. It's like not a big deal. So you always have a tool that you can self-correct with. And I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is learning what those tools are and experimenting with them. And that's something I enjoy doing too. Is I've been paleo, like mainly paleo. I mean, not an imperfect paleo. So that's why I just say like meat first. But then I want to experiment. I experimented with a ketogenic diet for a couple months, and then one I haven't tried is just a carnivore diet. Like that's one I just for fun want to try for a little bit of time. So we'll see. But some stuff, I've got kids, so I got to be careful too on, like, I don't want them seeing me fasting and other things, or I try to, it's tough. I try to play it off in such a way because, I don't want them to, next thing you know, they think it's okay to be bulimic or something like that, or like, there's some more eating disorder view of it, and or they could inspire that or something, an anemic, or whatever it is. So that's something that also comes to mind. That's why like a 1 meal a day or some of these other things. I mean, some of them I'm just a little bit unwanting to try. Also for just practical reasons too. I mean, you don't want to. There's that careful balance between limiting your social options and just living a happy life, and needing to have that extra like nth degree of fitness level that basically is just like an 80-20. It's the 20% that takes 80% of the time, or 20% that maybe takes away 80% of your joy in life, right? Or whatever it is. So there's that balance. But I guess one other thing that comes to mind too is, when you mentioning people eating out and the portion sizes and all this, interestingly enough, I mean, if you know what not to eat, it's never so bad. I mean, let's say you go out and, okay, maybe the alcohol and sweets are my killer, But other than that, I mean, on the food side, it's like give me any restaurant, even an Italian restaurant, there's still stuff you can eat that's just fine. It's not going to be a big deal. It's just knowing what not to eat or what to limit.
Mm. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. So you have these people that you're around, like Matt and other health influencers. You have some environmental changes that you've created for yourself. You experiment that keeps your motivation higher because something novel, that gets you into it. Something novel can help you get the excitement back again. Yeah, very cool. And then also thinking about how you're influencing your children with your choices. So being mindful about that. That's one of the first times I know this is an interview, so it's a little bit different, but a lot of people don't talk about that side of things. And there is something you talked about, eating disorders. You mentioned bulimia, certainly that's one, and being anorexic, but one that people don't talk about enough is orthorexia, which I kind of went down, where you're just like, I wouldn't eat out at a restaurant. This is like 20 years ago when it was hard to find organic food, where Whole Foods hadn't bought wild oats yet. Like, I wouldn't go out if they didn't have organic options, or, I was buying all this food from farms. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of the emotional intensity that comes along with it that can be very unhealthy. And I think that now we're starting to realize, hey, physical health is super important, but there's a lot of physically, quote unquote, air quote, healthy people out there that maybe don't really qualify as emotionally healthy or mentally healthy, or however you want to think about it. So thanks for bringing that up, especially with regards to kids. Something we all have to think about. What is it? What are we teaching our children? Not through our words, like, don't do what daddy's doing, because just like me with my dad, he was doing bicep curls and working out. I picked that up from him. He even gave it up, but I kept it up. And that was a positive thing, but could be a negative thing. You never know. So it's really, really important. Well, Dan, this was a great interview. I'd love to have you back again to talk more about leadership. And, you said you're very passionate about leadership. We just totally took off on the health thing, which is what I wanted to do today. But I'm very curious about that. So I'd love to have you back on if you're up for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. One more thing on the kids side. I got to say, that's got to be I think about that all the time, because when one thing I didn't mention is I was a fat kid. Basically, when my parents got divorced, I moved with my mom back to the States. I was born in Germany. And so by the time I was like 12, I think I was like 30 pounds overweight or something like that. And I finally got fed up and put myself personally on a strict diet for like 6 months. And lost like all the weight. Didn't have a single piece of candy during those 6 months. And I knew that when my dad was like 12, 13, he also was overweight or whatever. And so, I wouldn't say he had a little bit of he always carried a little bit of extra weight. I would say that, not a lot, but that was another thing is, I guess, I feel like, and my wife and I both feel like this. If your child is overweight, I get, okay, a little bit of a growth spurt. There's a little bit of extra weight, and then there's a growth spurt. But I don't really buy the a child being overweight argument as being okay, like at any point. Because in my mind, if a child is overweight, you're screwing up their hormones for the rest of their life. Where they'll always struggle with weight. There'll always be some tendency, at least that's my belief, there'll be some tendency to gain weight. So we've really made sure that with our kids, we're not total Nazis with candy and stuff like that. It's just mostly, but my dad in his old age, still wanted to drink like milk and like apple juice, and didn't really like to drink water that much. And, my kids even if we're out and people offer them juice or whatever, they might have a little bit, but they're still like, hey, I want some water. So like, that's their main beverage, And so it's like, just really trying to influence that in a positive way. Even with, I guess on the downside, I mean, after Halloween, I mean, because I'd get a pillowcase filled with like candy, right? I'd be high on candy for at least a month, like easily, like just eating copious amounts of candy. And, it's doled out like, one little piece a day after they've already like chosen the 80% they want to get rid of. So, even that stuff is just controlled to try to keep, because I mean, I remember when I was in high school, like I would eat like Cinnamon Toast Crunch for breakfast, and I would be high as a kite. Like I couldn't focus at all for at least the first hour of school. Like there was this weird, like, I don't know, I just feel like I was floating all the time. And so it took me, until I actually started eating more healthy and realized that that's what it was. Now, I mean, gosh, since I was in college, even like just basically just have eaten eggs for breakfast or protein for breakfast, and, no sugar. And it's just made a dramatic difference. So it's like, but most people don't know this. I mean, they're not thinking about it, or they're not, even have in-laws that it's like, they only recently got rid of the like candy stash that their kids always could go to take something, because the kids started gaining a little bit, they got to the point at 12, 13, 14, 15 that they started gaining some more weight and putting on extra weight. But it's kind of too late at that point. I mean, if you haven't already built the habits and already explained to your kids, hey, eat this, not that, focus on the meat, like focus on the eggs more than like eat less of this, but clearly, eat enough no matter what. But if you haven't explained that along the way, I mean, how are you going to change those habits at that point in time? And you've already kind of just made your child's life worse. So we just cut out for a sec. So that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm more extreme, but I'm not going to have fat kids. No way.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because with the children, thanks for bringing this up. But you're right. I'm not aware of all the literature on children. I don't work with children because, I love kids, but I like to work with adults. But there is a change that happens. And if they're dealing with it when they're young, it's certainly stacking the odds. And like you said, yeah, there's going to be some changes hormonally speaking with leptin and their brain and their hypothalamus and the regulation of body weight. It's like really can set them up for a very difficult life. Yeah. And so something to think about. Obviously, some people are in better situations than others. But if you're in a good financial situation and you've got a luxury car and other things, and you're thinking about where you're going to send them to school and what type of car you're going to buy them, and you're not really thinking about like, hey, listen, my children have a problem here, and maybe some of your resources need to go into that. Yeah, it's a tough situation, one that I don't really deal with personally. I don't even know how to help someone with that other than be the leader, be the example.
Set the example. I mean, you get to choose what you put in your kid's mouth, what you tolerate. I mean, kids can raise hell like wanting to eat, I don't know, fried food and versus something else, but you can decide. So it's just sometimes also having the tolerance to sometimes just guide those positive choices. But you've brought up the material piece and so forth. Yeah, my philosophy on like the whole material side of wealth is I tell you what, I would trade personal services over any material possessions any day of the week, because the more that I'd rather invest in that, because that frees me up and that simplifies my life. So like there's no, if you don't have somebody like working for you full time at home or something like that, and you have a Ferrari, then I think you got your priorities wrong. It's like, what? Who cares? Like, personal freedom is like the most important thing. I mean, in my opinion. And so you buy your freedom. I mean, but at the same time, by buying your freedom, you're freeing somebody else too, right? You're giving them an opportunity, and you're supporting all of these people as well who are able to then make your life better too. So it's like a perfect form of trading, right? So you get to focus on what you're doing, they get to focus on what they're doing, and everybody's just better off. So I don't know. That's how I think about that piece. That kind of guides a lot of my perspective on things. So
yeah, and you're bringing up such an important point. Something I'm a coach, so I sell coaching, and I talk about this a lot. The people who hire me are people who are doing really well in life.
Sure.
And one of the reasons that they're doing well in life is not just because of the money, but because of the value system behind it, because it's our culture. Our brains are wired in such a way, there's got to be some sort of wiring in our brain. I was trying to look up some literature the other day about this, but cars, you can touch a car, you can get in a car, you can drive a car, you can live in a house, you can feel a shirt, you can look at a watch, you can wear a watch. And it's just, there's got to be something in our DNA, and certainly our culture emphasizes that, hey, buy the car, you're going to get, if you're a guy, buy a car, the hot girls are going to like you. If you're a woman, get the purse, get the makeup, get, whatever it is. I don't really watch much advertising these days. Even when it's put in my face on social media, I don't even pay attention to it. But like, we have all these messages coming at us. They're probably exploiting some sort of innate wiring in our brains, some innate tendencies or biases or whatever. And then like buying coaching, whoa, what coaching? That's such a weird thing. That's for athletes. And, if you dig a little bit deeper, like Steve Jobs worked with a guy named John Mattone. I think I'm saying his name. But like, you don't think about yourself.
He didn't put him on a fruit diet, did he?
I don't know. No. I was a leadership coach.
Okay, leadership guy. I wasn't familiar with him. Okay, so, but no, just that was a bizarre one. But yeah.
Yeah, probably not so good with the pancreatic cancer. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, it's just it's something where if you don't make that shift and start to think about things in the way, or at least more in the way that you're talking about, Dan, society doesn't set you up for success. And even if you're a successful person, it's like, hey, now you have money, buy this car, buy this watch, buy these things. And I like nice things, actually. I like nice clothes, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just the imbalance, that is concerning, and the consequences of doing that.
100%. Well, I mean, it's just more of I don't know if you call it more abstract orientation versus concrete, or it's just more external influence or focus than internal. But no, I agree. I mean, I think, well, it also depends on the age of someone too, right? I mean, that's the other side of it. I mean, when you're younger, and we're similar ages. I'm 43. Maybe there's more of an impetus to show your wealth. But I don't know. Actually, that probably, my dad was, basically from the former Soviet Union. And I mean, there, the perspective is like, what's the point of money if you can't show it? So, it's just a totally different mindset. So versus, I would prefer to be subtle, Maybe if I think long term, it's like you drive a modest car, but you you fly in to get your car. So, I mean, it's, I don't know. There's just different perspectives. It's just what's important to you. I mean, I think it really comes down to what's important to you. If you're more cerebral and, you're more in the world of ideas or experiences or other things, then, the physical possession side, I don't think matters as much. But I mean, experiences is another place, right? I mean, what kind of amazing things where can you go? What kind of things can you try? I mean, that's where, I think that's where our generation is generally just shifting, or like people today. I mean, I think there's probably more of a movement towards that, like experiences over possessions, So it could be shifting. and there is some level of knowledge orientation, right? I mean, people are going online, looking up things. There are influencers. There are, I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, as much as people might not be reading, still might not be reading a lot of books. I mean, historically, the average was like 2 books a year for an American. And it may be, I don't even know if it was 2 books, but I think it was 2 books. But look how much reading is going on. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, regardless of what reading it is, I mean, people are reading for hours a day online. So there's some level, I think, more of knowledge orientation, seeking out information. And so I think that's a big opportunity for coaches, for other people, just to get their message out there and to get to influence people, nudge them in the right direction. So hopefully that bodes well for the future. Yeah, exactly.
And having people like you on the show to talk about your own experiences, it really helps. There's a circuit of people who go on podcasts, and it's really nice to get someone a fresh perspective. So thank you for coming on and sharing that today, Dan.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for your time. I appreciate it.
And if someone wanted to reach out to you for mentorship or for something else, do you have a place where you'd like to send them?
It's all really referral based. So Roitman@outlook.com. I mean, again, it's 10% of my time. So it's more, it's a passion area, but so I'm not really, as a marketer, I'm not marketing myself in a sense. So
I hear you. Yeah. Or even just to say something about the interview, perhaps.
Yes. Ping me on LinkedIn. That would be an easy place to do it, or go through the front door at Mindfinity and send an email in to customer service. It'll get to me one way or another.
Cool. Well, Dan, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your wisdom as well and your perspective on this. It was, inspiring to hear. And I know it's going to help shift some people to not be that pudgy entrepreneur that you talked about.
Exactly.
I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it too, man. Thanks a lot.
That's it for today, my friend. I really hope you learned a lot from my interview with Dan and listening to his journey. And I hope it inspired you to make some changes in your own life. Now, this Friday, I'm going to share with you what I would do differently if I was starting my fitness journey in 2022. I'm going to share with you the things I would do differently because there's 3 important things I would focus on. And if you want to figure out what these are, if you want to learn what these are so that you can take my 23 years of knowledge and fast forward your results, tune in on Friday for another Real Talk conversation. Have an incredible weekend. Speak to you then. Okay, I've got something exciting to share with you. Over the past few months, my team and I have been working hard behind the scenes to create something special for you, my listeners. If you're an executive, entrepreneur, or other high performer looking to lose 20 to 30 pounds of fat, transform your body, and to do it all without giving up your favorite foods or your social life in the process, then you're gonna wanna hear this. I've never done anything like this before, but I'm confident it's going to help you win big with your health in 2022. So if you're excited to see what I have planned to help you, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/Facebook to join my exclusive Facebook group. Again, that's legendarylifepodcast.com/Facebook. See you inside.